Hi guys, and welcome to FORGE WRIGHT. Really glad you could drop in. For those of you that watched the last video where I made a coal shovel, I've done a bit of a upgrade to the handle for that. Wasn't very happy with it at the time. The video was pretty long, so I didn't bother doing any changes to it. It's part of that video, but I've done a couple of things to it now. Well, one thing in particular, I didn't like the handle. It was long and thin, way too long for a start, and when you held it, it it was just a straight bit of steel, so a bit like a drift. You hold onto it like that and it wants to just twist in your hand. So I took to it with some heat and I've made an adjustment to it. So I've taken that eye, curled it back in underneath itself and shortened it right up, because it's only to be used on the forge, so I don't really need it to be this long. So I took that and I bent it round underneath, put a bit of a kink in that there, and fits in your hand really well now. So very happy with the way that turned out. Doesn't want to twist in your hand anymore. So yep, just a slight adjustment to that tool, and yeah, much more functional. So happy with that. Get rid of that one. I've also done a bit of work on a touch mark. So this is my touch mark. A couple of little issues with it. I'm pretty happy with the way the tool in general turned out. It's got a couple of nice flat sides along here for indexing. I've put a little W in there, which is what my touch mark is. It's a W with a dot in the middle. Of course, because this is my touch mark, I couldn't put a touch mark in my touch mark, so I just had to get one of those tiny little letter punches out of the set that I've got over there. I just put a little W in there, so that just helps me to see that that is the upright position. So if I'm looking at that, I can feel that. I know the W is pointing up and I don't print an M. So yeah, nice little dome spot on the top of that, and I think it can do with a lot of improvement. That V in there needs to be defined better, but otherwise I'm happy with the way that tool turned out. Looks nice, came up well on the wire wheel, and I've hardened and tempered it, so she should last me for a while. Then I had a go at making a punch. So I've taken probably about 180 mil. It started off at about 150 mil, turned out to be around about 180 mil. It could even be closer to 200. I'll have to double check that. Oh, look at that, 230 mil. I'm talking rubbish. So 230 mil long. That's the other issue that I have with this touch mark. I used an offcut of spring steel. Should have used a much longer piece, because you get down here, your hot metal is here, you're trying to put a punch on there and hit it, stabilize it, and your hand's really a bit too close to the hot metal. So that will be the next thing. When I make a new touch mark, I'll get a bit better at doing that, and I'll make one that's probably about that long, so I can get up here, right up here, have it sticking out the top. So I'd almost make it twice as long as that. So I realised that after I'd done it. But for the punch, I'm hoping to use it as a hammer eye punch. It's got a little slot on the front, tapered in both directions that way, then becomes parallel on the sides there. I mucked it up a little bit because I whacked a touch mark in there and I've dented it there, but I'm hoping that this is the bit that I will be using the most. I won't be really bringing it all the way up to there, so that shouldn't be an issue. It tapers up nicely here, gets to the right width there, comes up nicely there and gets to the right width there. So that's the bit that I'll be punching my hole through with. I'll be drifting it after that. So also happy with that. It's got, once again, some index markings on here, so I can see that if I'm holding it like that, it's straight up and down, or I can hold it like in my hand like that. I can feel where the indexing is if I want to punch it that way, or that way. I can actually feel where it is. So yeah, pretty happy with the way that turned out. Hardened and tempered that one as well, so pretty pleased with that. Got pretty much just a square taper on this end with a domed striking end. Didn't harden that one up. I figure I'll leave that nice and soft. This is less hard. I took this to about a straw colour, darker straw colour. This is blue in through here, and this is not done at all. I only put the heat into here and ran it down through here, and then quenched it when it got down to the straw down at the end. So very happy with that. Also made this as well. Bit of a slot punch. I'm not sure. I've left that wide there. Figure it'll slip through. Not sure. Just mucking around really, but pretty happy with the way that one turned out as well. Nice and flat on that side. Got that one better. Only used, I didn't have my touch mark at this stage, so I only used a letter punch set to put FW for FORGE WRIGHT in there. They're just marks from a from a multi, I should say, Stilson that I used on it at one stage. Mistake. Gripping it in the Stilson. So yeah, pretty happy with that as well. Hardened and tempered. Yeah, so that's that. Bit of an update on. I also, these are a couple of drifts that I got from a second-hand store. So I don't know what sort of steel they are. For all I know, they're mild steel, but I cleaned them up and put them through the hardening. I annealed them, got them up to critical temperature, quenched them, and then did the tempering of them to get them to a hard tip, softer down here. So did both of those, cleaned them up. One just a little bit bigger than the other for punching holes. So got them done as well. Didn't get any of this on video. I just got in yesterday and did some work, and didn't bother with the camera, but that's okay. You've watched people hardening and tempering before, and grinding and cleaning and polishing. Bit disappointed I didn't get the video of the drift, but I was busy getting into it. Felt really inspired and just kept going and didn't put the camera on. So I'm sorry about not catching that. But I'm going to start a new project. I want to make a rounding hammer for myself. Not all that impressed with the hammers I got. I love my ball peen hammer. It's great. And I've given it a rounding hammer face, but it's not a blacksmith's hammer. This Viscar hammer has the right sort of head. Too heavy really. It's got a short handle. It's got one of these poly, I don't know, rubber plastic thing. Viscar are a great German hammer, but and it's got a good straight peen on it. It's okay. I don't mind it. But it's a bit short, it's a bit heavy, and it's got a plastic handle. So not impressed with that for the use that I'm using it for. This thing here, which is just what you guys in America would call Harbour Freight, down here in Tassie, Australia, Bunnings is the go-to hardware store. El Cheapo hammer. It is £3, so also too heavy. This one here is 1 3/4 pound, much better. I got me doubts about this weight on there of saying 3 pound. I think it might be 3.9 pound actually, because I think that says 1.6, 1.5 kilograms, or it could even be 1.8. It's kind of rubbed off, worn off a little bit, so I can't quite see it, but weight, it's probably twice the weight of this. So I reckon it's 4 pound, close to 2 kilo. That's a much better weight for me to just do general stuff. This thing, if I want to really get into it and move some metal, yeah, it's okay. Once again, short handle. This thing, the Zeeble hammer, cross peen. That's the only reason I've got that. So I've got a cross peen hammer. Handle is loose. Typical Chinese make. It's got 2 wedges in the top, but yeah, pretty rubbish. I'll pull that handle out, put a decent handle in it, and use it occasionally. So I want to make myself a rounding hammer, but in order to do so, I need a lot of tools. So ideally, I'd like to have a hammer eye punch. I know I've made that, which is what I intended to use, and probably will attempt to use that on my first hammer. Don't know what it's going to turn out like. Probably be rubbish, as you would expect, but you know, unless you start making stuff, you don't know what you're doing wrong. But I'd like to have a timber held, a handled hammer eye punch, so I can hold it and strike rather than having my hand over it and striking. I think there's more chance of, you know, injuring myself and getting hot next to a very large chunk of very hot steel. So that's useful, but I want to make a hammer eye punch. I also need to make a hammer eye drift. Like I say, I've got round drifts, and I could use that as a drift, but I need to make a proper hammer eye drift. I've seen a few videos of them being made, and going to have a go at doing that. And the other thing I saw on, now let me think, Trust Me, I'm a Blacksmith. Dan, trying to think of his second name. Sorry, Dan. Trust Me, I'm a Blacksmith. He made a video of him making a hammer eye punch, hammer eye drift, and a bolster that he can use to sit the hammer down into to protect the cheeks. And I think I'll have a go at that. So I'm going to start a series on making the tools required to making a rounding hammer, and then making the rounding hammer. So come along, watch me stuff it up, watch me make a whole bunch of ugly looking tools and an ugly looking hammer that I can call mine. So thanks for watching Forge Right, and the next episode will be me starting to make some of these tools. Okay, pleased you could join me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.